platform, episode 3. What a wonderful week we had last week. And I believe that every one of you who have been following this live stream, this teaching, has been so much blessed. And you are getting informations that will enable you to take your relationship into another level. Last week, we did a great work on the subject that says your relationship is your decision. Actually, we centered on the issue of decisions, and we know that your life will never be the same. Now, I want you to go back to that YouTube channel, and you can look at the recorded section of the 2 other episodes, and that will help you to catch up with where we are. Today, we are looking at something different, but it's a follow-up to what we did last week. This week, we're looking at 7 basic facts you need to consider in your relationship before ever you say I do. Before ever you say I do. 7 basic facts you need to consider. Let me first of all read the Bible section from Matthew chapter 19. In the first episode, I read from this particular place. I read it from Message Bible, but right now I'm reading from King James, and I want you to follow up with it. Matthew chapter 19, I'm reading from verse 3. The Pharisees also came unto him, tempting him, and saying unto him, Is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? They wanted to know from Jesus, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any just reason? Jesus responded to them in verse 4, and he answered and said unto them, Have you not read? I want you to underline that because we're going to come back to it. Have you not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female? And he said, For this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twine, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. In verse 7, they said unto him, Why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement and to put her away? And he said unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your heart, suffered or permitted you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. And I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committed adultery. And whosoever marrieth her which is put away, doeth commit adultery. 7 basic facts you need to consider before ever you open your mouth to say, I do. I want you to understand that relationship is like a building. Relationship is like a building. And for us to really understand the dynamics of building a relationship, we need to understand, we need to build with the concept of a building. You know that when you are building an edifice, a skyscraper, or whatever building that you're building, the first thing that you normally do is to get a plan. You get a plan and a purpose for the building. And after you've gotten the plan, you go down to lay the foundation. And when you have done the foundation, you start erecting the walls, go down to roofing, go down to finishing, and finally you have the furnishing, and then your building is ready for you to live. The same thing with relationship. In every relationship that will last, there is need for you to have a plan and a purpose. Never you get into a relationship that is aimless and a relationship that is purposeless. A lot of people are doing it today. And that's why we're having the increase in divorce. Never you get into a relationship that has no purpose. Never you get into it. And when you have defined your purpose in any relationship, the next thing that you need to do is to be able to get hold of solid facts, solid principles. Upon those principles are going to be the building of your relationship, and it's going to help you to raise up a relationship building. But we don't do this today. All that we do is that the moment it seems that we have found him or her, our prospective spouse, the next thing that we do is most of the time the adrenaline, the hormonal, the chemical love begin in our life, and we become irrational and illogical. In such a situation, we don't reason anymore. Wedding begins, we begin to plan wedding, and the wedding, the moment the wedding is over, we discover that we have not really sat down to look at the demand and the price and what it takes to have the journey of marriage. So that's why I'm coming to you on F.I.N.D Relationship platform to bring unto you some of the things that you need to know. There are 7 basic facts that I want you to consider, especially when you are building your relationship. The first one is what I called the principle of knowledge. The principle of knowledge. When the Pharisees came to Jesus and asked him, should a man divorce his wife for any reason? The first thing that Jesus said unto the Pharisees is, have you not read? Have you not read? In other words, Jesus was making it very clear here that you don't get into a marriage relationship without knowledge. You don't get into any relationship, especially the one that leads unto marriage, without knowledge. There are 3 dimensions of knowledge that we're looking at right here when we talk about the principle of knowledge. The 3-dimensional knowledge. First of all, you need to know what marriage is all about, and you also need to know the spouse that you are choosing to be your partner. You need to know what marriage is all about. You need to know the spouse that you are choosing, and also you need to know yourself. As a matter of fact, that is a fundamental knowledge, because if you don't know yourself, you will not know the right spouse to choose. Let me begin to talk about the knowledge, because there are different dimensions of knowledge. There are different dimensions of knowledge. First of all, you have the knowledge, which is just getting information about relationship. Knowledge, the acquiring of information. What knowledge is, what marriage is all about. What your spouse is all about. What your life is all about. It's a level of knowledge, but it is not enough knowledge for you to get into deeper dimensions of relationship. When you have acquired the information about what marriage is all about, who you are, what your life is all about, what the spouse is all about, there's need also for you to upgrade that knowledge into what I call functional knowledge. The Bible calls it understanding. Functional knowledge. You can know that this is a car. You can know the brand of car, but you don't know how the car functions. There's something that the mechanic knows about the car that makes him to demand a huge money from you in order to fix it when it breaks down. That's understanding. You know your car. You know the brand of your car. But do you know how your car functions? That's another dimension of knowledge. And that's what I call functional knowledge. You see, it's not enough for you to know what marriage is all about, you need to understand how marriage functions. There are different kinds of marriage, even as we read from Matthew chapter 19 here. We saw the marriage that Moses gave to the people. And that is what I call contract marriage. It is based on terms and conditions. And there's another marriage kind that Jesus mentioned here, which is covenant marriage. It's not based on terms and conditions. It's based on trust. So you need to know, if you are getting into a marriage relationship, what kind of marriage are you getting into? Are you getting into a contract marriage? In other words, when it doesn't fit into your terms and conditions, you're ready to dissolve it. Are you getting into covenant marriage, a situation where you have to build on trust and other conditions into it? So you need to have a functional knowledge of who you are. How do you function? The couple, that the spouse you want to take upon, how does she or he function? Yes, you know the couple, but do you know how she functions or how he functions in certain or different circumstances of life? How does he function when he doesn't have money? How does he function when she is angry? How does she function in different environment? You need to know about the spouse, but beyond knowing about the spouse, you need to have a functional knowledge of the spouse. The reason why functional knowledge is deeper than ordinary knowledge is because there are bound to be situations where there are breakdowns. Just like the mechanic, you need to fix the spouse when there is a breakdown. But if you don't know how the spouse functions, there's no way you can fix it when it breaks down. There's another dimension of knowledge which I call knowing how to work it. Knowing how to work it. You have the information about the car. You know how the car functions, but do you know how to drive the car? These are deeper portion of knowledge, and you are expected to acquire this knowledge in order to make your marriage function. Do you know how to drive your spouse? What is it that makes your spouse go where he doesn't want to go? What is it that makes him do the things that you want him to do without making him feel bad? These are deeper parts of knowledge, and that is what we call wisdom. So you need knowledge, acquiring information about your spouse and about marriage. But beyond gathering the informations, you need to have a functional knowledge. Know how your spouse functions in certain situations and how your marriage functions. You also need to know how to drive, because that brings motivation. Let's take, for instance, there's a man in the Bible that is called Nabal. Nabal was a foolish man who got married with a very wise woman called Abigail. It baffles me how a foolish man can marry a wise woman. But if you look at the wisdom of Abigail, you discover that more than every other person, Abigail had not just the functional knowledge of who Nabal was, she also had the knowledge of how to drive, how to marry this man. Most of the times, people's marriages break because you compare your spouse with another spouse, another person outside there, forgetting that your spouse is not that particular person that you are comparing your spouse to. So it's important that before ever you say I do, there's need for you to gather as much knowledge as you can in order to have a healthy information about what marriage is all about, and also the spouse that you are dreaming to get married to. There are two major violators of the principles of knowledge. And I beg to tell you that Christians are one of the most violators of the principles of knowledge, because we believe that if we have heard from the Holy Spirit, you understand what I'm saying? Or if we have had a dream or a presumptuous information about this particular person spiritually, we believe that everything is done. It's not done that way. It's not done that way. Adam and Eve Eve was presented unto Adam by God himself. Yet it was not an immunity against the challenges of marriage. You can have the person that God has shown unto you as your spouse, but if you don't follow the principles of marriage and the principles of building healthy foundations, you're going to have a huge problem that you'll not be able to fix. So Christians are one of the violators. You need to know the man. You need to know the spouse. You need to know her. You need to know him. You need to acquire as much as information that you need in order to go to the next level. Another people who violates the principle of knowledge are the people that seems to fall in love. You know that when we fall in love, we become illogical, we become irrational. We become irrational in our decisions. We don't see obvious things that need to be done. We don't see obvious issues that we need to deal with. Just because you are in love, I have to say in love because I know that most of the love that we base on those issues are chemical love. They are not really the true love. So it's important for us not to violate the principle of knowledge. Remember, Jesus said, have you not read? That's the key. Have you not read? In other words, you should have gotten information about marriage and your partner before ever you say, I do. The next principle that we need to build our relationship, I said before ever, consider these principles before ever you say, I do. The next one is what I call the principle of varieties. The Bible said that at the beginning, he made them male and female. Male and female. Marriage relationship is not between male and male. Marriage relationship is not between female and female. Right from the beginning, at the cradle of marriage institution, the author of marriage said is between male and female. And I call it the principle of varieties because the male man and the female man, they have different complementary contribution of influences in order to make their marriages to work. The male man brings something different. The female man brings something different. But even though they are different influences, they are complementary in building a healthy relationship. And that's how God ordained marriage to be. So before ever you say, I do, you need to check out this issue of the principle of variety. Now, it's not only in the same-sex marriage that we see these clashes. Even in heterogeneous marriage, even in a marriage between male and female, sometimes male refuses to be male. Some men refuse to be men. Some men brings the attitude of women in their relationship, and some women act like men in their relationship. So in a situation whereby the male refuses to be male in taking responsibility, boy, you need to be man. That's why it's not for boys. It's for men. Marriage is not for boys. It's for men. So The man ought to be man, and the woman ought to be woman for the relationship to work. I tell everybody, especially when I counsel people and teach on this principle of varieties, I say to everybody that if there was no Ahab, there couldn't have been any Jezebel. Jezebel is a product of Ahab because Ahab refused to be the man that he ought to be in that relationship. So, because Jezebel was of a stronger character, she hijacked the position of Ahab just because Ahab failed to do what he needed to do. That's the same thing with a man in a relationship. In a time that you ought to stand up and take a decision that could defend your spouse and the whole family, you are dilly-dallying and lazing about and shifting responsibility until the whole building is coming to collapse upon everybody in the house. And the woman now takes that lapses and begin to exhibit the things that ought not to be. So it is important that we understand that marriage is built on the principle of varieties. The male need to be male, and the female need to be female. Maybe as we continue in this discussion on this platform, we will look at the power of the woman and the power of man. But I want you to understand that man need to be man and woman need to be woman, and that's the principle of varieties. The third principle that is needed to be considered here before you say I do is the principle of living. He said, and he said, for this cause shall a man live. For this cause shall a man live. Notice here that it is the man that was asked to live. Is the man that was asked to live. In our culture, we are built that women ought to live. Yes, women already, they know that they need to live. Right from the time they are born, they are already being conditioned that one day they're going to leave physically from their home and they are going to their husband's house. So women are already, they have that inbuilt attitude, inbuilt upbringing that they ought to live. But watch the man. The Bible said that the man ought to leave his father and his mother. His father and his mother is the most intimate relationship. He said the man ought to evacuate everyone out of his life in order to make room for the spouse to be the only dominion, only supreme, apart from God, only intimate one that comes into his life. That's the principle of living. Living is a deliberate evacuation of everyone out of your life in order to give your spouse the special place in your life, the most intimate place in your life. And I want you to know that living have to happen inside of you before ever it will happen on your phone booth or before ever it happen on your contacts. We need to understand that until we leave, there will never be a cleaving. There have to be a leaving for there to be a cleaving. So before ever you say I do, you need to ascertain the willingness of the spouse to leave every other relationship and make room into you in their heart for you to come into that special place in your life. Otherwise, the marriage is going to have a problem. That's the reason we're having 50% divorce. Because so many people who get into marriage relationship are not ready to leave. They're not ready to leave the old relationship. It's talking about your father and your mother. Your father and your mother is the most intimate relationship that you have. They gave back to you. They brought you up, they groomed you, they influenced you, they bonded with you from cradle, from the beginning of your life. Now, marriage demands that you leave them. You leave them. You remove them from the most intimate place of your life, and then you bring in the one that ought to be your spouse. This is a little bit challenging. I know it's a little bit challenging. Some years back, a young lady here, I was talking with her in my office here in Cape Town, and she told me how she was engaged with, and each time they want to go forward, the mother will be the issue. The young man loves the mother more than her, to the extent that there was unnecessary influence of the mother deciding everything about the relationship. When she could no longer take it, she decided to dissolve the relationship, and she went on with her life. After some time, the young man started coming back crying and was talking to her. I said, I want you back in my life. And she said, the only reason, he said, what must I do so that you can come back in my life? And she said to him, the only thing that I want you to do is go kill your mother. If you kill your mother, I'm going to take you back. That looks so harsh. But I say to her, bravo, that's beautiful. Let him kill his mother, then you can take him back. That was a very powerful a very powerful decision. And I 100% I supported the lady. For you to take him back, you need to kill his mother. But this time around, it's not physical killing of his mother, but you have to kill his mother inside of that most intimate place, because that position is a position of the spouse and not a position of child. Not a position of your mother. It's a position of your spouse. Relationships are breaking because you see, especially single mothers, single parents, because they've been without a partner for long. They have their baby boy or baby girl, and they are so much bonded with their children to the extent that they have given the place that belongs to their future husband to their children. And it becomes difficult for the prospective spouse to gain access into their life. Why? Because the placement for the spouse is already occupied. Living cannot happen until you clear up. Let me take one more principle. I'll continue from where I stopped next week. Now, the next principle, which I call the fourth principle, is a principle of cleaving. Cleaving it can only happen when there is living. He said, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother and shall cleave. And shall cleave. That's principle number 4. You must build your relationship on the principle of cleaving. Cleaving is a principle that demands that there will be oneness and bonding of people's dreams and plans. Your relationship have to be built on the principle of cleaving. Remember, I said the first one is the principle of knowledge. The second one is the principle of what? The principle of variety. The third one is the principle of living. The fourth one I'm dealing with right now is a principle of cleaving. Cleaving is a situation whereby you've come together to bring your plans, your purpose, your dreams, your aspirations in life. You come together to bound it into one. That cannot happen without living. A situation whereby the spouse is not willing to leave, he cannot enjoy cleaving. You see, I've heard people say, my spouse doesn't support me. It doesn't support me in my dreams. It doesn't support me in my aspiration. It doesn't support me in my goals and all that. The reason is because there is no living. For wherever there is living, there will be cleaving. And cleaving has to do with oneness of plan, oneness of goal, oneness of purpose. If we get to the point of cleaving, then we are ready to go to the fifth principle, which is the principle of bonding. It's a place where you begin to harmonize your dreams, harmonize your relationship. When your relationship comes to the place of bonding and harmony, then you are ready to get a building wherein the spouse can live together. I think I got to stop here today, but I want you to see the 5 basic principles that I've mentioned in this episode today. The principle of knowledge. You need to get knowledge, not just knowing about your spouse and about marriage. You get to upgrade your knowledge up to functional knowledge, knowing how it functions, knowing how you function, knowing how the spouse functions. And you need to upgrade that functional knowledge to wisdom, which is your ability to walk it. Not just knowing how it works, you know how to drive it. You know how to move one another. It's in the place of knowledge that happens. The second principle that we mentioned again is the principle of varieties. You must know what you ought to bring on board. You must know that the male must be male, the female must be female, and bring that influence that is required of you. It have to be a different influence, but it have to be complementary to one another. The third and not the least is the principle of living. You need to live. Some of us who are married have not left. We're still carrying our families. We're still carrying our old friends. We're still carrying our job. We're still carrying everything. The inside is already fully occupied. Your spouse is looking for a way to get hold of you, but it have never been possible because the inside is already occupied. You need to flush yourself. You need to get everything aside and bring that space which is the most intimate space in your life. And that is how you bring your spouse into that particular place. And I spoke about the principle of bonding, becoming one, the place of harmony. That's a journey. It's not just an event, it's a journey. But when you get to that particular point, you have a relationship building, and you can live in that building by the principle of submission and the principle of harmony. You can explore your relationship and take it beyond divorce. Now, what am I talking to you about? Make sure that before you say I do, ascertain the fact that your spouse is ready to go through this journey. Is there a material that is willing to live? Is there a material that is willing to learn? Is there a material that is willing to cleave? Is the spouse a material that is ready to go all out with you through this journey? I'll see you next week. My time is up. I'll see you in our next live stream on Wednesday next week. Wednesday next week, definitely we're going to stream by 7 p.m. here in Cape Town. But don't forget, go to our YouTube. Watch this again. Click on the subscribe button. Click on that bell to notify you the next time we are live. And do one thing, sit down, get the principles that you can get and apply it in your life. But don't forget to share this video to somebody who is a potential person that this can bless. Till I see you next time, I'm still your relationship coach, Caleb.